Um, Today's topic, what we're here for today, is on member engagement and retention. To start off with today's topic and why it matters, it should be obvious, but I did want to go back to this, which if any of you attended ICE, hopefully this should look familiar to you. Basically, one of the main reasons why membership matters is because it affects the entire rest of the growth cycle for the chapter. So if you have increased membership and if your membership is active, better chance you're going to have stronger officers. Stronger officers in turn mean stronger activities. Stronger activities in turn mean better image. And then a better image on campus means you get more members and more engaged members. And so it can be a very constructive feedback loop, or it can also be negative. If you don't focus on making your members engaged and active, then this can work in reverse, where you get fewer leaders who can do fewer events with this reduced image for your chapter, and then your membership takes a hit from that. I want to go over two quick popular strategies on keeping members active. One has a lot of different names. I call it the activity point system. Basically, you set up some kind of system where members can get points for attending events or participating in some kind of activity or project. And usually by achieving some number of points, it unlocks active status. And this could be general. It could be like you just need to get 4 points or 4 hours or something like that. Or it could be more specific, like shown here, 1 service point, 1 social point, 1 fundraising point. This, by the way, is a great way if you find that you have really good member participation in one type of events, but not another. You can just specify what they need to do to become active, and then it can help push participation in those other categories. Anyway, you typically keep track of these points with some kind of spreadsheet, often made public, but not always, on a website or something like that. And then you can offer some kind of rewards as incentives, for example, giving them discounts or free graduation stoles and cords from Tau Pi. Another popular strategy is really making sure that your general body meetings are basically worth attending. Usually this involves making sure there's some other component besides just announcements. I think a lot of clubs on campus will have a lot of meetings that are basically, here's free pizza and we're going to talk about what we're going to do, but we don't actually do something. It helps to have some component to your meeting that is actually interactive. Maybe it's a social element, maybe it's a professional speaker, maybe it's playing games, something like that. All those can help quite a bit. Also recommend having good food. And be organized and be prepared. Have a presentation ready if you need it, have an agenda ready, things like that make it look a lot better than if you just try to go with the flow. And make sure that it's a fun experience for everyone. And also related to that, make sure everyone feels involved. Good idea is to have your officers talk to anyone who seems off to the side, and try to avoid making it feel click-based. Mix people up to form new friendships. If you're doing a social activity or something like that, mix up the groups that you don't have just groups of friends, that people actually interact with each other, I think is very important. Another thing, so we are going to send out these slides along with these links later this week on Friday morning usually, and we'll include links to 2 very specific, very good resources from the Student Advisory Board, one on activities that can engage members, and another that gives a template for an activity point system if you don't already have one going for your chapter.
So I was the past president of the chapter for UC Riverside, and during my term, we were not super active, but we did have an activity status system for initiates, and we would require them to attend at least 2 events and have an interview / a meeting with an officer. And usually our initiates will go to far more than just 2 events, especially after they've gotten to talk with several officers and form a bond, and they still attend meetings and events as members even when they're not necessarily required to.
During my term as past president for University of Oklahoma, and I think the execs on previous years did have activity status points, and we normally did, we separated them for required and and unrequired activity points. And we use the example like Alan suggested with regalia for graduation. And for the required meetings, we would have it be for when the members would vote on initiates for upcoming classes, and we would also have them vote on events that they wanted, like speakers and whatnot.
Yeah, sure. So my chapter was Connecticut Alpha, Yale University, and so we were a smaller chapter too, just because our engineering program is a little smaller, and we did not initiate CS majors, which would have increased the numbers significantly. But so we did have an activities tracking point system where I forget the exact number of points, but members could get generally between 1 and 3 points for attending an activity just based on how long it was. And we also did the basically for members who reached a certain threshold of points, they got like a sweatshirt and a special dinner at graduation time. And that did work pretty well, I think, although we did realize later on that it made more sense to split it up into a points requirement per semester to avoid the situation of students procrastinating on getting their points and then at the last few weeks asking us, how can I get 3 extra points? So we kind of split it up into a points requirement per semester to kind of spread out that requirement a little bit more.
So for my time at Drexel, we were really trying to build the membership base on campus. And for our chapter, we didn't have much like base recognition on campus. And so I think it was really trying to build a culture of what we were as Tau Beta Pi, making sure that everybody who came to our meeting felt welcome, that I made a point to shake everybody's hand back when that was kosher to do as they walked in the door. And also just making sure that when you're doing your meeting, there's always some logistics you have to go over for chapter operations or what have you for what's coming up, but making sure there's some value you're bringing to the chapter, which I kind of started realizing doesn't have to be something laborsome. There's resources all around you. One of the district directors for me actually was an alum from Drexel, and so I was like, hey, do you want to come talk to us at one of our general body meetings? And he gave a great presentation. We had a great turnout. And sometimes just having something small that's external to your chapter to come in and bring some extra value is a really good motivator, and just encourages people to attend.
So during my term as president, I made an effort to invite a diversity of speakers for our meetings. So I felt that the members would benefit a lot from a lot of industry professionals from the Tau Beta Pi Alumni Association. So I invited a lot of them. And this was slightly before the era of COVID. And we had already had one panelist that we experimented with having a remote call during the meeting. And it was pretty successful. And we also introduced some speakers, not just from industry, but also from academia. So in graduate school for members who are interested in not just going to industry. We made an effort to also bring in some good food, as Alan had mentioned before. Food is a great motivator. And when COVID had hit, we made a shift to online, where we would have online events such as study sessions and the voice calls, or even daily just random questions that people would engage in to talk with one another.
We brought in alumni and current engineering professionals, because that's one of the, at least in my opinion, the strengths of Tau Beta Pi is you actually have industry and professional connections that you can ask and you can make. So we would often ask people that are working or people in other industries that were engineers that were part of Tau Beta Pi to come impart their knowledge, give advice, et cetera, et cetera. And then we would also have general body engineering events and then Tau Beta Pi specific events where it doesn't always have to be super formal or like dedicated to like expanding your future. We had something called like Tall Beta Puppies, where a separate group on campus would bring during like finals week. They would have like massage things and like therapy dogs to bring in. We thought, oh, you know, that's fun. People like dogs. People like just kind of like de-stressing. So we always do that every semester now, and everyone loves it. And then we would also do Tall Beta Pi specific events where we would actually have like something formal where we would either do like resume sessions or me in particular, we had like a meeting to prepare for the FE exam. So if you can do something like that, that might be nice for your members.
I always found it really good practice for the events to have very clear expectations to the members as to what they were getting themselves into at the event, because it's kind of an inherent quality to Tau Beta Pi members that you're like very busy individuals. And so I would always make a point, one, to like say a general body meeting, it's going to be like 1 hour, like 6 to 7. And two, you actually have to do it. Like you have to actually do the meeting and start at 6 and not go any later than 7. And doing like keeping your word and setting that expectation, it anchors your members to be engaged and know that they can budget their time properly around Tau Beta Pi and your meetings so they can be involved.
Yeah, so definitely gonna say some similar things to what's already been said, but so in terms of engaging members, definitely started during the initiation process. Like I tried to kind of personally, like all of our leadership members tried to personally get to know the initiates one-on-one if possible. We do require the initiates to go through like a brief pretty casual interview with a member of leadership, which is also a good way to start kind of getting to know them. And then at our information session, at initiation afterwards, just trying to like reach out and just get to know them as people and kind of start forming friendships. And then I think in terms of events, really thinking about what are events that are actually provide value and have draws. Like for us, like we had a couple of our like more successful events that we did where, for example, we brought in one like a speaker who's sometimes a professor, sometimes an industry professional, and then had kind of a group dinner with them that involved kind of like a more formal presentation, but then also just some more casual conversation. And that was like a great opportunity to both kind of provide the value of utilizing the Tau Beta Pi network, but then also have kind of a more casual setting and a nice kind of dinner setting that's a draw for the members, because obviously food, and also kind of encourages everyone to get to know each other a little bit more.
I'll throw out one little specific one, which was at every event I did, I tried to invite either an officer or a member who I knew was going to be really charismatic and engaging. And that was hugely helpful. Like someone who's going to be playing music or, making jokes all the time. And when I wasn't able to find someone like that, I would try to be that person myself. So I'm naturally shy. I am not very loud usually. But I would make an effort to like make jokes, make fun of myself all the time, make it like a really fun and engaging experience for the people who did attend it. So that, especially if it's their very first event they're attending, I wanted to make sure that they had a really good time and that they couldn't wait for the next event.
I know that during when I finished being president was the first semester that quarantine and COVID and everything happened. And what I would do, which might not work for everyone, I'm very informal, so it worked fine for me. I would start meetings with like a really weird YouTube video, and that was always great. I thought that it was fantastic. And then after that, I think it like lightens the load a little bit, because sometimes like it's really hard to have like more natural like conversational timings and like vibes online, unfortunately. So if people feel a little bit more comfortable, they're more willing to just kind of just like blurt things out. So
I think that's a great idea, just to kind of keep things casual and maybe just get everyone past the awkwardness of of virtual things. I think even beyond like a YouTube video, just like making doing like incorporating activities that kind of force everyone to talk and force everyone to kind of get out of their shell a little bit. Like kind of some icebreakers are better than others, but like finding things everyone has in common, or kind of talking about I don't know what, even just like what's like the best part of your week, or like different kind of icebreakers, just to kind of get everyone talking a little bit. I think you have to just try kind of make that extra effort to like actually consciously, I guess, incorporate activities that will get everyone talking in a virtual environment compared to an in-person one. But it is certainly doable, and once I think you get everyone talking, it can kind of go a little bit more smoothly.
I think to list like some specific activities you could do online before a meeting, or like centering a more social meeting, there are free game websites like Scriblio or Gartic Phone, or if somebody has Jackbox, that's a great one. Everyone loves Jackbox. There's also something I'm going to take a page from my district director, Neil, who's in the call right now. We've done some things called lightning talks, where somebody will present like a 3-minute presentation on any topic. I think this is a great way for maybe a member to talk about their research, something they're passionate about, show like a wacky side. I did one on Animal Crossing because it was around that time.
I loved doing corny icebreakers when I was in person. I never had to do it with my chapter because I was lucky enough to miss COVID. But the thing that I would just add in is that the breakout rooms are a great feature if you have a lot of people on the Zoom call. Everybody can kind of stay unmuted if there's only like 4 or 5 people in a breakout room, and then you can kind of have a more candid environment to do an icebreaker and then come back together as a big group.
It really helps to mix up groups. Like if there's friends in there, you want to split them up, get them to interact with new people. And that's even easier in Zoom or in any breakout room session. And then also, like all of them have mentioned, personality really matters. If you can be weird or funny or charismatic or charming in any way, witty, whatever your best personality traits are, put them forward, make them a part of the meeting, and I think it makes it really nice.
I think the simplest upfront solution to that is just to split up the requirement maybe between like fall semester, spring semester, and then also for new initiates. Although honestly, I feel like it is having an active point system is a good starting point, because it kind of gives a clear message upfront to new initiates that there is an expectation for them to come to events. But honestly, I feel like there is only so much that you can force with an active point system. So I think having it is definitely helpful, but I think having it spread across like multiple kind of like checkpoints, like you need this many for initiation, you need this many for fall semester, for spring semester, or also for fall and spring semester of junior year if they come in as juniors. But I think beyond that, it does go more to creating events that are fun and encourage people to go. And I think there's only so far that you can really like force people to come to events, because at that point they'll just probably decide that if the events aren't worth it, they probably don't care as much about the regalia. But if there are events that they're actually excited about and having a good time at, then they'll probably come, whether or not they have a prize at the end of the tunnel. So it's a good starting point, but it's not the whole strategy.
One simple thing that we did was we split the rewards. So we noticed the cords were much more popular for us for some reason than the stoles. So we split the 2 rewards so that you got the discount on the stole if you were active your very last semester, and you got the discount on the cords if you were active every semester since you were initiated. And then we've recently added another feature, which is like the more semesters you're active, you get additional discounts based on that. So we added extra incentive for that. But I totally agree with Elizabeth. Like the best you can do is basically run good, engaging events and hope that they're interested.
So this one is going to be a little bit specific to your own circumstances. When I came in as president, we had the previous presidents had a lot higher of a point requirement for students. I think it was like 80 or 90% attendance for the events we had. And I personally thought that was a little bit too high, because like you can't really force anyone to go to anything for the most part. And just because like I really value TVP doesn't mean that like every member should have the same amount of like passion for the organization that I do. So like I dropped that down, and when I dropped that down, I saw a lot of people my year come, but I don't know, like that's one of those things where it might not be that, it might have been something else. We just had more members during that year that just wanted to be more engaged. So potentially something to think about.
Here's some general ideas that I think are really important. First, try to make general meetings and really all other events worth attending. Try to make them fun and engaging. I think it's kind of implicitly been mentioned a couple times also that first impressions matter. Engage them early during the initiation process and immediately after. If you have some kind of banquet or something like that immediately after the initiation ceremony, make sure that there is something in there that is engaging to them and they don't just separate with their friends. Make sure they're actually engaging with each other. Third, if someone shows up to a meeting or event, make sure they feel welcome and involved. Don't allow them to be a wallflower. Try to befriend them. We definitely recommend from the chapter development team making some kind of activity point system or something similar based on your own chapter's needs, whatever those may be. And I highly recommend checking out that resource that has been mentioned a couple times of the template from the Student Advisory Board. And finally, choose events and activities that have members interact and form friendships if at all possible, because I think those are one of the best ways to keep people coming back.